Fantasy football running back tiers, we're going to go about 6 tiers deep, so get ready. It's about 27 players. We're going to talk about a 28th, so let's get right into it. But before we do, I do want to go ahead and say that I have a draft guide coming out soon. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to be presented to you yet. I'm either going to try to do some sort of website, or it's just going to be a Google Sheets, which is kind of lame, but it's at least something to give to you so you can use it while you're drafting. I'll show an example right here. It's not exactly how it actually looks because I have some things changed around, but this is the format of it regardless. No matter what I do, whether it's a website or if it is this Google Sheets, it will look similar to this. You're going to be able to see injury risk, ceiling, floor, good offense. Is the player consistent or not? Their ADPs, where they're going, of course, my ranks, and what tier I have them in. If I haven't mentioned already, it's going to be 100% free, just for the love of the game. Make sure to comment down below if you want it. I plan on getting it out to you roughly late July, mid-July. It's definitely going to be out before August, before it's time for your fantasy football drafts. Again, let me know if this is something that you're interested in. But it's time to get on to these fantasy football running back tiers, and we're going to go ahead and start with tier 1, and we're not going to spend much time on it. I have a problem of blabbering on forever, so we're not going to spend much time on it. Running back 1 and running back 2, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't care what order you go in. Truthfully, I think if I had the first pick overall in multiple leagues, I'm going to take one in one of them and the other in the other. I just love both of these guys. What few concerns I do have are so minuscule that I do not care. Bijan Robinson, his biggest problem is going to be the offense. Is it going to be good enough? Jahmyr Gibbs obviously has so much on his offense. He's going to have to share the touchdowns with the group. The Lions have a slightly easier schedule, in my opinion, with a 4th place schedule, finishing last in the NFC North last year. Again, they're so close. Whichever one you want, it does not matter to me. I think have Bijan 1 and Jahmyr 2, but come August, maybe I switch them. Again, it really doesn't matter. You can't go wrong with either one of these guys. Next, we have tier 2. It's going to be Christian McCaffrey, Ashton Jeanty, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, and Amarian Hampton. I actually don't know what the consensus on these guys are as far as their tiers go. So that is, I know what their ADP is. I have that here. And so just going off of ADP, I think this is roughly everybody's tier 2. Maybe they have less players on it, but if they have this many players, I think it's going to look similar to this. The one guy that's kind of out of place here would be Saquon Barkley, again, just according to his ADP. So I will start with him. I actually think we're going to see a huge bounce back season from Saquon. Maybe not quite what we got 2 years ago when he was just the best running back in football, but I do think we see a significantly better version of Saquon Barkley than we did last season. One major reason is I just think Philly's going to go back to what worked, and what worked was leaning on this running attack. So I think Saquon Barkley's just going to get more attempts and more work this season. Not only do I think that just because that's what worked, but also you trade away A.J. Brown. You're starting the season with a rookie wide receiver in Mekhi Lemon being your number 2 wide receiver. Obviously, everyone loves Devontae Smith, and I have no doubt that he can be a number 1 wideout in this league. But again, your number 2 is going to be a rookie Mekhi Lemon. Jalen Hurts is very clearly has his limits here. So I think it is a very safe bet that the Eagles are going to go back to what worked, and they're going to go back to a run-heavy attack. Saquon, if healthy, which of course is the big thing with Saquon every year, if healthy, Saquon is going to be a guy I think that finishes as a top 5 fantasy football running back. I actually am considering putting him over Jonathan Taylor because Jonathan Taylor last season, when Daniel Jones went out, dropped significantly. When the teams could just hone in on the rushing attack, Jonathan Taylor could not do much. So that is something that I am concerned about, and I actually think when this draft guide comes out, I might have Saquon Barkley over Jonathan Taylor. That's how serious I am about thinking. That's how serious I am that Saquon Barkley, I truly think, is going to have a bounce back season. If I had to rank them, I would say, like I said, Bijan, Jahmyr, and then Christian McCaffrey probably at 3. Of course, the injury risk still scares me. I'm probably taking the elite receivers before I'm taking McCaffrey. But right behind McCaffrey, I have Ashton Jeanty. I do think it's a top 4 and then a little bit of a gap before Jonathan Taylor. And the reason I say that is because Ashton Jeanty is going to be this offense, whether it is Kirk Cousins at quarterback or Fernando Mendoza. Kirk Cousins is going to be a guy who plays football the quote-unquote right way. When it's not there, he's not forcing it. He's going to dump it down to Ashton Jeanty and just let him cook. Look at all the Bijan Robinson targets last season from Kirk. I think that whether it's Kirk or Fernando, who's going to be a rookie, and he's going to be coached hard on checking down when it's not there, don't make mistakes. Ashton Jeanty, regardless of who's quarterback, is going to get a lot of in the receiving game, which is going to be huge, especially PPR and even half PPR leagues. I also think they did a really good job of upgrading this offensive line last season. And, of course, Clint Kubiak is going to be the new head coach, the new offensive play caller. You look at his experience, he is really good. I mean, he is a Kubiak. He is really good at getting the rushing game going. I really like Ashton Jeanty this year. There's no competition in that backfield. Love Ashton Jeanty this year. And then Amarian Hampton's the last guy. I kind of thought, honestly, when I was starting to put this together, that this was going to be a hot take. And then after looking at it, it's not. He's RB9 in Sleeper, RB10 in Yahoo, and RB11 in ESPN. So I have him the top 7. I guess it's a little higher than the consensus is. Basically, for Amarian, my thing is, he was so good when he was actually healthy and playing last season. I don't think Kamani Vidal is going to be that much of a issue this year as he was kind of at the end of last season. He was on a hot streak. Obviously, they bring in Keaton Mitchell. That does not bother me much at all for Amarian. He's going to be more of the receiving back. And even then, it's not like you're not going to let Amarian Hampton get his work in. I'm not that worried about Keaton Mitchell. Amarian Hampton is going to come in and I think really take this Chargers offense to the next level. They've been kind of stagnant. Him and Mike McDaniel, of course, being the new offensive coordinator, is going to come in, I think, and just change this offense. They look significantly better as an offense when he was there because he's a good running back, of course. And so I am very high on Amarian Hampton as well. Let's go down to Tier 3. Again, I'm going to try my best not to yap. So Tier 3 is Devon Achane, Chase Brown, James Cook, and Kenneth Walker. That's where it ends. That is going to be my running backs 8 through 11. Devon Achane should be in the second. Should be in the second tier. The reason he's not is strictly because I worry that this Miami Dolphins offense isn't going to score enough touchdowns to make Devon Achane a clear-cut RB1. And if that's the case, then he can't be going in that top 2 rounds, maybe late second round. I mean, and maybe he can go in the second round, mid to late second round, of course. But I worry about him being your number 1 fantasy option this year. That is my big pause for concern. He is going to tear it up when he's healthy and playing. I worry, like, if this Dolphins offense doesn't score many touchdowns, what do you do if you're Devon Achane? You don't have Mike McDaniel calling plays and setting you up like you used to. Granted, I don't think he needs it. He's a great talent. I'm just saying it's not going to be as easy. There's a lot of cause for concern for him, I think. So, me personally, I'm taking a slight back seat on him. Not too far. Again, mid-second round, I'm probably taking him. I just don't want him to be my first fantasy option this year. I have too much cause of concern for that. If everything works out, his ceiling is still a high-end RB1, but I just think his floor is much lower this year than it has been in years past, barring injury, of course. Chase Brown is somebody I was super high on last year, and in the first half of the year, it looked horrible. And I kept saying, week to week, hang in there, guys. It's going to work. I'm watching these games. It's going to work, I promise. It doesn't look good. I get it. And thankfully, second half of the season, he turned it on. I had a lot of people asking, should I trade him? And I was like, no, you're not going to get his value. Keep him. It worked out. He ended up being a top 10 or right at a top 10 running back last season in fantasy, at least in PPR. And I think similar things happen this year, especially when it's Joe Burrow or Joe Flacco. Both guys utilized him a lot. I think this offensive line, run blocking, looked horrid to start the season. Honestly, the offensive line as a whole looked horrid to start the season, and then as the season went on, they got better and better. They gelled together, and then I think Cincinnati did a good job of bringing most of those offensive linemen back. So there's going to be continuity going into this year. So I really think that Chase Brown has the potential to at least do what he did last season. I firmly believe that. So that's why I have him right there at that RB 8 to 12 or 11 spot, just because I think he has a good chance of repeating what he did last year, which is in that exact range. James Cook I have a little lower. I mean, he's going as the RB5 consistently, sleeper in Yahoo. I have him as my RB10. And honestly, the only reason for that is because I think the Bills will uptick in their passing game slightly due to having a receiver they're going to view as like a legit number one. Whether DJ Moore actually is that or not, and that's a different conversation for our wide receiver tiers. But I think the Bills are going to believe that he is a legit wide receiver one, obviously, the way they traded for him. And so I think they're going to attempt to pass the ball a little more. Josh Allen is their best player. I think utilizing him a little more is never a bad idea. On top of that, James Cook has also had some insane touchdown numbers this past 2 years now, which is funny because he started off as a guy who never scored touchdowns. I think that he's going to experience a small downtick in touchdown numbers, again, due to a slightly higher passing percentage from this team. Also, Josh Allen's kind of slumped a little bit in rushing touchdowns. He probably gets a few extra this year. So overall, I don't think obviously he falls off the face of the earth. This isn't me saying he's not going to be a good running back this year. This is me strictly saying I just think he downticks a little bit in every stat. And so I just don't think the ceiling is what it had been. But keep in mind, his floor is still extremely high as well. I look at him as not quite an Amon-Ra St. Brown, but similar. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown, top 3 fantasy wide receiver 3 years straight. Of course, I don't see him quite that high, but similar as in you don't really view him good enough to have that RB1 chance, but you're also knowing he's going to most likely be a top 12, a starting number 1 running back for your team. So again, right around 10 is where I have him, just not quite the upside in my opinion in 2026. And then Kenneth Walker, everyone loves Kenneth Walker this year. I am, of course, I'm right there with him. And sleeper, he's going all the way as the RB6. Obviously, I think that's a little high. Yahoo, ESPN, it's more like RB11 and RB14. I think that's roughly about right. I have him again in that 8 to 11 range. My big thing's health. Strictly all it is. He would be much higher if I could turn off injuries. Can't do that. I'm worried with him being the lead back. The only year he stayed healthy was this last season where he had to split a lot with Charbonnet. But in this Andy Reid offense, he's going to be awesome if he's healthy. So that is really the only risk I have with him. I think worst case scenario, he is a high-end RB2. But at least if he's healthy, I'm fully confident he's going to be a top 12 running back in fantasy football this season. All right, let's drop down to tier 4 real quick. We have Cam Scatterbo, Breece Hall, Javonte Williams, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, and Josh Jacobs. Jacobs I'll start with just because his situation's a little weird. I don't fully know what to do with him. As of now, he's playing. He's back at practice, so we'll leave him. That's really all there is to talk about with Jacobs. Obviously, there's a guy missing that I haven't spoke about yet, and that I should maybe put in the tier 4, and I'll talk about him in the next tier. So let's start at the top. Cam Scatterbo. I actually have a video coming up probably tomorrow that I'm doing for Shorts or TikTok, whatever you watch, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels. I post everywhere. Talking about Cam Scatterbo or Quinshot Judkins. And in that video, I actually say that I would probably take right here, right now, Quinshot Judkins. Clearly, Scatterbo's in this tier, and I haven't talked about Judkins yet. So the reason for this is I am at this moment in time with not much information available to me, assuming health for both. I'm assuming health for pretty much everybody. Obviously, there are risks to take into consideration, like McCaffrey, and like I said with who did I say it about Kenneth Walker? There are risks to take into consideration, And with Scatabo, that is the case because I think fully healthy, I would put him in tier 3. That's how much I love Cam Scatabo. You look at when he played last season, besides his first game and then the game he snapped his leg in, he was elite. And I think we're going to see very similar stuff, if healthy, from him this season. You just have to worry or wonder, will he be healthy? Also, I'd like to mention in that video, I don't know why I'm spoiling that video, but there is a lot of good information and stats, so check that out. I think that's coming out. This is coming out Monday. That's coming out Monday. It'll be out already. Cool. Anyway, so I guess I don't mind spoiling it. I end up saying Judkins currently right here, right now, but if we're in August and I see Scatabo running and he looks healthy, we're going to go Scatabo. That's why he falls in this tier 4. Again, if he looks healthy by August, he's going up to tier 3, but I think that's a big ask to see if he's going to be healthy with the significance that injury was. Breece Hall just got paid. A lot of people groaned when he got paid. They wanted him to get traded. Obviously, I am one of those to an extent. However, I'm not as out on Breece Hall as a lot of people seem to be. He's going as the RB 16, 17, 15. He's my RB 13. I think we're going to see him take real advantage of this opportunity that it has this year. The Jets absolutely paid him, which makes me fear like a Braylon Allen way less. He's going to be the guy this year for the New York Jets. Geno Smith threw the ball to Ashton Jeanty quite a bit, way more than I was expecting, especially for how many interceptions Geno Smith threw last year. I was expecting Ashton Jeanty, when I looked at his target numbers, to not have many passes towards him. He did. He had a lot. So, Breece Hall, he's going from a guy in Justin Fields who didn't check the ball down whatsoever to a guy in Geno Smith who will check the ball down. And honestly, in a PPR league, that makes Breece Hall so valuable. Therefore, I have him right here, tier 4, RB 13. And then the next two guys I'll just lump together, and Derrick Henry and Kyren Williams. They both have a similar running style. Obviously, Derrick Henry is much more elite, but he's also like 35 years old. So, do we think that Derrick Henry can do it again? He's going as the RB, 15, 13, 10 across Sleeper, Yahoo, and ESPN. And I have him at my RB 15, so right about with consensus. I'm a little lower on him, I think, overall. The only reason I don't have like a Kyren ahead of him is because the Corum situation there. And again, I will go ahead and get into that. I'm not that worried about Corum. I think we see roughly a 65% slips, 65-35% split between the two, which if you look at the numbers at the end of last year when Corum was rolling, that was the split. I don't think we see it get much closer than that, maybe like 60-40, but that's absolute most. I'm not that worried about Kyren Williams this season. And then Derrick Henry, like I was getting at, just his age is starting to concern me. He's going to have to fall off at some point. Just is what it is. He can't do it forever. Is this the year? Who knows? I would rather a Josh Jacobs, who I currently have lower than him, but Josh Jacobs, whole situation. So currently they're just going to stick there. I didn't even talk about Javonte Williams, but he is very similar to Derrick Henry, Kyren Williams, except it is all his show in Dallas, and he's in such a good offense, a great offense, I would say, in Dallas, where he's going to score a lot of touchdowns, and therefore his fantasy points are going to significantly inflate. All right, let's keep it rolling. Try to get through these last two tiers fairly quickly. Already 20 minutes in. So we'll get through tier 5, Jeremiah Love, Bucky Irving, Trevion Henderson, Travis Etienne Jr., the Saints version, Travis Etienne, Quinshon Judkins, and that's where it ends. That is going to be our running backs 18 through 22. All right, let's talk about Jeremiah Love. That's the guy I was referencing last year when I said I have a guy that should probably be up in tier 4 and tier 5. He's going as the RB11, RB12, and RB9 across the 3 leagues I've been referencing. I am just significantly worried about 2 major things, and that's why he dropped so far for me. First of all, offense is going to be horrible. And like I talked about with Achane, if you can't score enough touchdowns to support you as a top-tier running back, I can't confidently take you, and therefore I won't take you at all. You also have a lot of mouths to feed. a trade happens, a cut happens, they trade away or cut Algier or James Conner, which I don't think they're going to do, at least a cut. They could trade one of them, especially if the Josh Jacobs situation gets any worse than it already is. Maybe a James Conner and Algier gets moved to Green Bay. If that happens, of course, Jeremiah Love skyrockets up my board. The issue, though, too many mouths to feed, not enough points to get. He's going to have to work, I think, primarily out of or through the air. And that scares me. When they get down the field, this feels like a situation like Kenneth Walker last year where they're going to take him out and Algier or a James Conner is going to come in and score the touchdowns. Kenneth Walker is honestly very similar to where I would say Jeremiah Love might be next year. All the talent in the world, but if the coaching staff uses you in a weird way but unlike Seattle, your offense can't score a lot of points, that scares me. That concerns me. Again, until I see something different happen, something major, even just like upgrading this offensive line or something, I don't feel comfortable taking Jeremiah Love. Again, this is redraft leagues. I have the first pick in one of my Dynasty leagues. I traded for it. I am taking Jeremiah Love in a Dynasty league. I'm just talking strictly redraft. I just don't feel comfortable taking him as an RB10 or what was it? RB14? No, RB11. Jeez, that's just a little too high for me. I could be convinced to like RB15. That's about as high as I could go, I think. I maybe like behind a Breece Hall, honestly, in my opinion. All right, Bucky Irving. He's still dealing with injuries. Obviously, he didn't do well last year due to injuries, and he's still dealing with injuries. That scares me. He still isn't fully participating in practice. Todd Bowles said some weird thing of he should be ready by summer or fall. Yeah, I'd hope so. You play football in fall. That's concerning. They go out and they signed Kenneth Gainwell, who led the Pittsburgh Steelers last year in receptions. That's concerning if he's going to end up taking the Bucky Irving receiving work. They paid him a pretty penny to be their backup as well. There's just a lot of things there that are concerning me. And again, it's similar to Scatabo in a sense. If I can see him working and he looks good, if he comes in day one, I'm fully confident it will all be his role. He's not going to have to share with Kenneth Gainwell, and they'll be fine. If I said Kenneth Walker earlier, my bad. I meant Kenneth Gainwell. My issue is if he starts off slow and Gainwell's in there and he is doing what he usually does, which is when he gets opportunities, he plays well, then I worry Bucky's not going to get like the receiving work back. And then you're taking him way too high. So again, it's early June. It's June 7th. So there's a lot of time between now and draft time. That could change significantly. But right here, right now, I am pulling back on Bucky Irving. Trevion Henderson, Travis Etienne Jr., I want to talk about both of them as a duo, I guess, just strictly because they're kind of in a similar situation. They would both be higher, probably a lot higher, if they didn't have the guys behind them that they do. As long as Alvin Kamara is in New Orleans, he's going to take away some of the receiving work from Travis Etienne. I don't love that. Trevion Henderson is going to be the opposite. As long as Ramondre Stevenson's in New England, he's going to, just take carries away from Trevion Henderson, just make inefficient carries, and then he's also going to take away touchdowns. Currently, honestly, I don't care what order you have them in. You could flip them. I'm just weary of both of those guys, so as of right here, right now, they have to go all the way to tier 5. Something happens, an injury to Kamara or Stevenson, or we just see otherwise that one of them is going to be used way more, then they'll go up. But right here, right now, we have to leave him in tier 5. And Quinshon Judkins, he's a guy that could potentially move up, but he was very inconsistent last year. Todd Monken is going to be his new play caller. Todd Monken obviously had Derrick Henry the last 3 years, similar style back, but obviously not as good as Derrick Henry. I do think he's going to get the majority of the work. I think Sampson's going to get a lot of receiving work, but that's not really Judkins' game anyway, so that doesn't concern me that much. His current ADP is RB25 in Sleeper, 23 in Yahoo. Where did I see that? I lost it. 23 and 21 in ESPN. I have him slightly above all of them. No, slightly above 2 of them at my RB22. I like him and where he's going. I like that value. That is going to be a guy, if he's there around that time, I'm probably taking more times than not. You can make an argument that you would take him over a Trevion Henderson or a Travis Etienne just because of lack of competition in his own backfield. All right, tier 6, the final tier we're going to be talking about today is DeAndre Swift, Jaylen Warren, David Montgomery, Chuba Hubbard, Tony Pollard. And then that's 27. I said I was going to talk about a 28th. We'll jump right into that real quick. It's Baishaw Tootin. I feel like I could be easily convinced to include him in this tier 6. There's part of me that thinks I should have. I'm just not 100% sold that he's going to be their starting running back this year. Chris Rodriguez played for the Commanders last year, and whenever he had opportunity, he did very well with it. Cohen didn't love Tootin last year. He didn't give him a lot of work. That's just something I'm iffy on. Again, talent-wise, I think he should probably be in this tier 6. So maybe when I'm doing this again in July, when I'm updating these, maybe I have my mind changed by then. But right here, right now, I'm leaving Baishaw Tootin out just a little bit. Anyway, back to tier 6, and we'll get through this quickly. Jaylen Warren, DeAndre Swift, very similar guys. DeAndre Swift is a guy that I kind of fade every year, and then every year he just plays well. And I expect nothing different this year. However, I do think he's going to get less work than he had in previous years because I really like Kyle Monangai, and I think the Chicago Bears too. What tells me that is they didn't draft a running back. I thought for sure they'd be drafting a running back, and they didn't. So I think Kyle Monangai is going to have a spot in this offense. It's going to take away from DeAndre Swift, but DeAndre Swift has proven he can work with Monangai being there, and he can be a good, solid running back option for you in fantasy football. I expect nothing less. Jaylen Warren, kind of the same thing last year. I think he's going to take over more of the receiving role with Kenneth Gainwell gone, and then they bring in a Rico Dowdle, who's not going to be the receiving back. So I do think Warren takes a little bit more of the receiving role, but he might lose a little bit of his groundwork from Rico Dowdle, who looked at times elite last season. So I think there's going to be some give and take with Warren that ends up putting him roughly in the same spot he was in last year. David Montgomery is a guy that I think can go into Houston and put up the exact, if not similar numbers to Joe Mixon way back, what was that, not last year, but the year before, his first year in Houston. He went in there, he lit up the league, he was top 5 running backs at one point, he was elite, had an injury, fell off the face of the earth, and we never seen him since. David Montgomery, I think we could see do similar things. The issue is, I'm also talking about the injuries. He's always been injured when he has a big workload, so I think David Montgomery is a guy that could come in, play extremely well. I think I see him as a very consistent, almost like a Josh Jacobs type, where he's not going to drop 35 for you, but he's going to get you that 15 to 25 range every week, and you're going to be happy and satisfied with him. But he's going to miss a few games every year. That's just how I feel about him. He's going as the RB 26, 26, 25. I have him at my 25, so I feel roughly the same as everyone else. If it's a non-PPR league, then I feel better about him than like a Swift or a Warren. But in a PPR, half PPR, I put him slightly behind those guys. Chuba Hubbard is a guy that I honestly question. Chuba and Tony Pollard, I'll do them both together. Guys I kind of question putting in this tier 6. Chuba Hubbard did not look great last year. 2 years ago, he looked awesome. Last year, he didn't look that great. And Jonathan Brooks is finally healthy. And if you've seen the clips of him in practice, he looks like he did not lose any speed from those 2 ACL injuries. If Jonathan Brooks is healthy, I think he might take this job. So that is concerning. But if he doesn't take this job, or if he's not healthy, then Chuba's going to do the same thing he always does, which is just be solid. He's not going to be great, but if he's playing and he's healthy and he's the number 1 back, he's just going to be a solid running back for the Carolina Panthers. Tony Pollard's the same way. Mr. Consistency. He's just going to come out and he is going to give you 12 to 15, 12 to 18 every single week. And if he's your flex option, you're happy with that. And a lot of people I've seen are turning away from Tony Pollard this year. He's going as the running back 30 in Sleeper, 32 in Yahoo. I have him at my RB 27, so it's a little higher than consensus. Again, he's just consistent. I could very easily see the argument of Bashal Tutin over him, but at the same time, Tony Pollard's going to have that backfield. I have no idea if Tutin's going to end up being the starting and lead back in Jacksonville. So I see the argument both ways. Again, where I'm at currently, I could easily see myself putting Tutin at least in tier 6 and maybe halfway up tier 6. But right here, right now, I just feel better with Tony Pollard. And when I draft, especially when we get later, I do usually shoot for upside. Just a drafting strategy I have when we're talking about RB30. So right there kind of told me I am going to have Tutin above Pollard eventually. But if you're going for safe, if your draft strategy is just let me get these guys that I know are going to be well and do well on my team, Pollard might be the guy that you're looking for. And I don't see, he's 29. He could take a down step, but I don't think he does. I think, again, we just see what we always see from him, just consistent work. He has an upgrade in his offensive coordinator. I think that's going to be huge. Cam Ward, year 2, probably check the ball down a little more, be a little better at it. I just think we see consistent, solid work from Tony Pollard, so he goes in this tier 6. So those are my early fantasy football running back tiers. Again, I'm going to do this monthly. I'll do this again in July, and then I'll do it again in August, which will be my official tiers. I'll have this draft guide out by then as well. Let me know, again, if you want the draft guide. Drop a comment down below, DM me, whatever the case may be. Tell me you want it, and that way, and also tell me what you want to see from it. I gave you a little peek and a preview of what you're going to see. Tell me what more you would like to see from it. As always, do all the YouTube things, like, subscribe, all of it, and I'll see you next time.